This is going to be our build guide video for the Hummingbird Gen 2. It is many, very overdue, but we are finally doing it. Hummingbird is a great build. It is very compact, great SMG. Probably one of my favorite close quarters full auto flywheelers there is. Uses angled magazines though. But without further ado, here's all the hardware you need and the prints. This is what it would look like if you got a DIY kit from us. As far as tools goes, you will need a combination of different hex key sizes. I believe you only need a 2mm. And that's actually it. And then a small Phillips for your motor screws because they're really tiny to install the motors. And then I like to use a larger Phillips or a longer Phillips as well to install the big screw in the grip. Of course, you'll also need your standard soldering supplies like solder, soldering iron, maybe wire strippers, those kinds of things. And then in case your prints came out a little tight or you need to adjust some hole sizes, a small file set and a set of drill bits also helps a lot. To install some of the pins, they can be kind of tight, so I like to have like a little small hammer here, a 10-ounce hammer to tap them into place. And then, like I said, a drill bit set to widen those holes or clean up those holes, or a file set for the prints. You can use pliers or wire strippers, but I also like those on the hand as well. Helps making getting small spaces a lot easier. So hopefully you got some basic tools ready to go, and if you don't, you can find them as you go. But I'm gonna start by cutting my wires to some predetermined lengths because I like to do that. Of course, you do not have to pre-cut your wire, but I like to because I find it to be nice to not have to constantly worry about the wire lengths. But for this, I'm going to take my wire bundle. I'm going to do a 12 inches of red right there. Just going to triple check that. 12, yep, 12. And then we're going to have a 2 5/8 or so. And a 6. And then for the black, I'm gonna do a 6.5. And you can see I've got lots of excess wire here, a whole nother bundle, and that's in case you do want to kind of do wire lengths as you go, you have room to mess up. And then on the solenoid, I'm gonna pre-cut those as well. So measuring from the body of the solenoid, I'm gonna cut one to 2.5 and one to 4 inches. So I'm just gonna do some of the internals first. I'm just gonna slide off this nut and washer because we do not need those anymore. But we're gonna install our pusher, and I'm going to try to get it as straight as I can. I'm gonna press nice and hard, and I'm gonna twist, thread that on. Gonna keep it straight. Because the threads are, at an angle, you will sometimes get the pusher to sit at an angle, want to get it as straight as possible. Then I like to leave a small gap behind it to give it a little more throw on the length to help with the feeding reliability. And if it is loose, you will want to use some super glue. That's not required though. Over time though, it could loosen up. So a drop of super glue can help. Then we're going to install our flap, which goes onto the back of the solenoid. And I am going to install the flap so that way the two-prong side of the flap is facing down, so you can see that there is a cutout here, and I'm going to put it into the flap like this, flap facing down. And that way I can make sure the flap installs all the way, and you should see it bottom out inside the flap. Hopefully the lighting is okay. And then last thing is we want the pusher, the bottom of the pusher here, to be lined up to the bottom of the flap there. So I might just loosen that a hair so that way it gets lined up like that. Okay. You can also rotate the back. And there you go. There's already got a pusher assembly. Then I'm going to install my motors. Before I install the motors, I'm going to make sure that the cage, it came out nice and the print is going to fit my motors. Looks good, looks good. Then I can install the motors by putting a really small drop of thread lock, because this comes out fast, so you have to be careful. Thread lock, thread lock, thread lock, thread lock. And then I'm going to install these into the cage. in the following polarity. So you have red to the left, red to the right, with these prongs facing the back. They should go all the way in. Press them nice in. Then we'll install our motor screws. Tighten those down so they're nice and tight, but don't over tighten them as to strip the screws or the motors. You should feel them tighten down and then you can stop. Then we're going to install our flywheels. There is a 3D printed kind of spacer piece that you can use to set the height, but we'll adjust the height later as well. So I'm going to press it straight down. Don't want to bend the shafts. Press straight down until it presses against the spacer. And again, press straight down until it's against the spacer. You can see one is slightly higher than the other. So I'm going to adjust that to make sure they're the same height. I'm going to raise this one up a little bit by pressing down in the middle and then pressing up on the outside. A little more. There we go. So I want them the same height. Now we're going to install the rest of the body. A little more. Okay. Then we're going to do the mag release. We're going to make sure the mag release fits on the receiver and slides freely. So you can kind of see when I line up the shapes there. And see if I put it on and I can pull it out. It's got a little tightness in it, so I might file it a little bit, probably in the grooves where it's going in. So file the nubs. I'd like to make mine so it basically just falls open under gravity to have the highest chance of releasing. When that is sufficient to your liking, then we are going to install the small compression spring into the mag detent. And then I'm going to install that. Before I do that though, I'm going to triple check to make sure my pins fit in my prints as I go, check the tolerances and whatnot. So we're going to do a 3x30 pin into this. So a 3mm by 30mm pin. So I'm going to make sure my pin fits in the hole. See, it definitely does not. So I'm going to drill that out. I can use a 1/8 drill bit. Let's see if that works. Yep, 1/8 is nice and loose. So now I can install my spring into the mag detent. And I'm going to take this assembly, I'm going to put it in so that way, like the detent, the flat side of the mag detent is facing up. I'm going to go into the mag well here. So the spring is going to line up on the inside on the top shelf of the mag well. So if we see the grip there, it's going to sit just like that. With the spring on top of that. Then we're going to install our mag release in the correct orientation on top of that. And then I'm going to put the pin through that assembly and press it down so the pin doesn't stick out. There's a mag release. It should be able to pull and reset just like that. Okay. Next, we're going to work on the switches orientation. Depending on how good you are at soldering in small spaces, you can solder the switches outside of the assembly and then install all the switches as one sub-assembly, or you can install the switches now and then solder around them. I wouldn't recommend that just because it seems to be a little harder to do right the first time. So I'm going to solder all the switches and then install them later. So I'm going to have my 21 amp switch and my two 10 amp switches. I'm going to put my 6-inch wire. This one I'm going to have coming out of this leg here. So I'm going to tin my solder. Or tin my wire with the solder. Then I'm gonna tin our switches terminal, or tab. Then on this one, I'm gonna have it come up, just straight up. And that's all I need for now on that one. Then we're gonna take our 12-inch, so 0 to 12. We're gonna put the first end of the 12-inch on the switch here. This will be our fire switch. That's gonna go on this tab here. And then I'm also gonna solder that so it's sticking straight up. Like that, so the wire's coming straight up. Then I'm gonna measure 3 5/8 inches of that. So from here to 3 5/8, it's about here. I'm gonna then strip some wire, give it a twist, 3 5/8. Then I'm gonna tin, and then I'm gonna connect that to the side, or the COM, or the shoulder tab of my 21A switch. Okay, and then this wire, we want to kind of bend in this orientation, so both wires are going to come out facing the tabs. Like that. Just like that. Then we want our 2.5-inch wire, our shortest guy, to go from the middle to the first tab. Hopefully we can zoom in so you can see that. I'm gonna strip and twist the wire. Then I'm gonna tin both. Then I'm gonna connect the wire here. Again, the wire is gonna come straight up out of the switch. Then we're going to connect that again, straight up. So all my wires should be coming up out of the page. So it'll look like this. So all my wire joints are coming out in the same direction out the top, or what will be the top. Sweet. We can solder the solenoid now, but I'm gonna install the pins. Just gonna, reset this. So we're gonna have our 3x20 pin. 3x20 fits. We're gonna do a 2.5x14 in the smaller switches. These can be a tight fit. So I like to kind of get it guided to get started, and then I'm going to gently tap it with a hammer without breaking the switch. So I want to make sure the pin remains straight as I tap it. Let's see if this works on this table. Not too bad. So I tapped it so that way it kind of bottomed out on the bottom. That'll make it easier to set later. Then I'm going to install or solder on my solenoid. So I'm going to strip a little bit off at each end. This is going to be the shorter leg of the solenoid. So the shorter 2.5-inch one is going to go onto the switch that only has that one wire, and is going to go onto the far side. Again, we want it sticking up. And then I can install my battery connector, in this case an XT30. I'm going to install that onto the 12-inch wire. It's coming out of the C on the battery, so the COM. Also don't want to forget our heat shrink. So I'm going to take one of these heat shrink sections. I'm just going to snip it in half. Then I'm going to install the heat shrink. Then I will tin the wire and tin the connector. Red is going to be the positive side. Positive here. Then I'm going to put my wire in. Okay, then I'm going to slide on that heat shrink. I'm going to shrink the heat shrink. Okay. Then I'm going to install all my switches into the body. So the 21A switch, oops, careful. It's going to go here, and we're going to put a, okay, then I'm going to slide on that heat shrink. I'm going to shrink the heat shrink. Okay. Then I'm going to install all my switches into the body. So the 21A switch, oops, careful. It's going to go here, and we're going to put that 3 by 20 pin into the hole into the bottom of it. And if you need to, use some pliers to be able to push it into the hole, kind of get it lined up. You can feel it, snag the hole, then push down to seat it. There we go. And then the switch with the solenoid is going to go into the middle section here, like this. You have to hold up the solenoid so it doesn't kind of drop and get in the way. But we will put that one into place here. Get that on camera. So yes, the one with the solenoid is going to go here. Got to get it in the hole though, right there. Push. Same thing with this one. Push. Okay, and then the last one goes here. Get it lined up just right and push. Okay. Now take our trigger. We're going to make sure that the pins fit through. These are 3 by 30s. So you should be able to slide back and forth. And we're going to have 2 of them. What we're going to do is we're going to put our longer compression spring into the trigger hole. Let's see, you got to make sure everything came out okay. I'm going to pick up the solenoid and all that. I'm going to put the trigger in. I'm going to rest the spring against the switch in the back. Then I'm going to install my pins through the sides and then into the trigger. Press those in all the way so they're not sticking out. Like that. Make sure the trigger sets and resets. If it's a little stiff, you could use some lubricant or take the trigger out, do some sanding, put the trigger back in, but that's just perfect. Oh, these are 3 by 36 or 3 by 35s. And then while I'm here, I'm gonna kind of put the solenoid in. Let me do the trigger cover. That'll be easier. So then with the solenoid, kind of just here, we're gonna put the auto sear in. The auto sear will go right there next to the button on the switch, and then it should be able to move up and down. You know, if it's too stiff, file it, smooth it out. I'm gonna file it a little bit just to make it extra nice. So I'm just gonna round that edge out a little bit better. So that way the auto sear can more smoothly move forward and back. A little smoother. Then we're gonna put our cover on. And we're gonna have to kind of finagle it in there and tuck the wires as we go. So while holding it together, I'm going to then put this cover in. So like this, or through the middle here. Get it lined up. And then I want these wires to be in front of this here. So then I can slide this back. Now I'm gonna put the solenoid over to the side. We want these wires to come out to this side here. Slide that down, slide that over. Tuck it. And then we want to make sure that there's no other wires pinched behind it. So then we want to slide this into position on the far left. Almost there. The pin's not in all the way. Cover needs to go underneath the screw ports for the solenoid like that. There we go. So you can see that the wires have a distinct direction that they go in. So of course all these wires come out the front, and then you have this wire needs to be here, and then those are okay. And we're gonna then squeeze that down right there. Try to tuck that nice and tight on the pins there. Push down without breaking anything. Use my needle nose to carefully finagle. There, nice and flat. No wires underneath. You can see this cover sitting flat. And then we're gonna tuck these wires so they kind of run down the channels, so they stay out of the way of the bottom of the solenoid. Should be nice and tight, but they should fit just right. Just tuck them in that channel there. And then the solenoid, we're going to then just feed the wires to the front. You see they're kind of twisted. I'm just going to make it nice and pretty. And then the finger of the flap faces down along with the wires face down. So that's all going to be the down orientation. We're going to install the solenoid just like that. And then we should be able to have the wires kind of sit neatly. Depending on the length of your wires, want to make sure it sits flat and the wires aren't causing everything to sit too high. So you should be able to push your solenoid on and have those holes line up. And then at this point, I'm just gonna go ahead and install my side rails to hold that solenoid in so I don't have to hold it up anymore. Each side rail gets an M3 by 16 flathead screw, and they go with the longer rail facing the front. Phillips there, and then I'm going to do one more just to hold that solenoid in while I do the cage. Make sure that the solenoid can move all the way forward, all the way back. You should hear it kind of move the auto sear. Click, 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 click. Looks good. Then I'm going to solder in my cage. And so this angle portion is the back. This is the front here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder it into that orientation. The solenoid wire is going to go onto the negative. The battery connector is going to go down into the housing. And then of course you have your negative and your red positive. I'm going to solder those, so I'm going to strip the end of each of those and twist. So we're going to start the red on the front right side, just the opposite of where we want it to end up, because then the second joint where it's going to end up is going to be lined up to where my wire is going to end up going. There you go. So then we can see if we rotate it down into position, the red wire is coming out the side. We do want the wires to go this way though. We want the red wire to come out to the back side. So the best build would be the red wire to the front, but coming out the left side with the wire going towards the flanges on the back. So So there you go. We've got the red wire going to the front with the remainder of the wire coming out towards those prongs, and you can see how it's going to line up there. And then finally, we of course want the battery wire to stay tucked down, and then the solenoid wire, we want the end of that to be going to the negative. It's going to go this way. So yeah, solenoid wire to the negative. So again, the wire is going to come out towards the two prongs in the back. There we go. Okay. I'm going to put the battery connector down. We are then going to tuck the wires to either side of the mag well. Make sure you're not pinching anything. Make sure you're not pinching anything. Tuck that in. Make sure you don't press anything weird because some of the prints are kind of thin, so you want to make sure you don't accidentally press on the walls of the prints. You should just press, get it in the slot and then press straight down like that. There we go. Nothing pinched there. Make sure this stays tucked. Put it into its groove there. Push down. You should have, it doesn't have to sit all the way down, but enough so that the hole lines up. In this hole, I'm going to put a 3x45. That's going to be one of the longest pins all the way through. Make sure it's lined up. Looks good. Slide that in. Give it a push. Make sure, you know, we're gentle with it, but firm. Firm push. Get it seated. There we go. I like to do it evenly spaced on either side. A little OCD there. And then there's that. Make sure it functions. Trigger pulls and resets. The pusher goes and retracts. And then this is the tricky part because there is pretty tight tolerances is when you put the top cover on the cage, it might rub on the wheel. So we kind of want to break it in and put it on slowly as we go, especially if your printer tend to over extrude or your prints might come out kind of tight. It can make the tolerances very tight on the flywheels, and so if you just slap it together and hit go, you might burn out the wheel. So make sure you slowly build it and test it as you go. So I'm going to do the rail on the other side. And then again, I'm going to test it, make sure it's all, still good. And then this is the barrel. So the barrel is going to sit on top here. And you can see it's very tight tolerances. Like I might not even be able to get that on just because it's got to kind of sit just right. So I'm going to break it in depending on how your prints came out. I'm going to go ahead and grab a battery. We recommend charging your batteries before using them since they will be delivered in a lower charge state than when you'll actually want to use. Yep, that works. So now to get the cover on, we're kind of going to do this thing where we kind of rev it and put the cover on as we go. We can see that if you put the cover on straight on, it looks like it's going to be too far forward. So we'll just kind of deal with it. So we're going to rev it, put it on, and let it kind of break itself in a little bit. We want it to sit right in the middle. Break in a little more. It's gonna melt your prints. That's gonna happen because of the rubbing, but we want it to rub when we want it to rub, not rub when it doesn't want to rub. Just making sure the wheels are still level with each other. They look good. I think we're pretty close now that we can put our pin in. That's going to be a 3x30. So let's put the pin in. I'm going to do the same thing with the spinning and the breaking in. I'm going to do this one a little more gently now. Let's see. There we go. All right. Yep, we're good. So you can see when I rev it now and I'm holding the cage, I'm kind of breaking it in. And now no matter where I pull it or push it, the wheels keep spinning. So that's what we want. Now, no matter how we pull it or push it, the wheels do not seize up, and that's kind of breaking the wheels into the 3D print. A lot of flywheelers, if you just slap the cover on and try to rev it, the wheels aren't broken in, and so they'll get snagged on the cover and then seize up and you burn out a motor. But testing it first before you go all in is the safest way to make sure you don't blow out a flywheeler. But we're good now. This is where I would do a preliminary test fire. So this is solid enough where I can test it. Make sure the mag goes in, make sure the mag drops out. Yep, and then make sure it fires. Nope. Try again. It could be because that cover's not on all the way, so we'll just kind of push the cover down a little bit. Yep. So now we'll know that if we install the rest of it, it should work. So we're gonna put our hand stop on. Just slides into the top like this. Locks into place. Upside, no, that's right. It's just really tight. A little bit of gentle persuasion. Okay, pretty good. That's gonna be a 3x36. It's gonna be the longer ones. Should go all the way across. Not the 45, should be your last 36 there. Sweetness. Gentle persuasion. Final seat. Then we can even see if we put the hand stop on, did I move my cover? Are we still good? We're good. Both still revving. We'll keep going. The top cover has a top rail that can be hard to get on, again, depending on your print tolerances. But the angled or the chamfered end goes towards the front, and the front's gonna be this part here. So you're gonna put the chamfered end into the back and slide it forward. This one fit perfectly, which is nice. If you do have to hammer it at all, you want to support it from the thickest material here. So I put it on the edge of a table and then tap it down with like a rubber mallet or something gentle. So that way I don't put extra force on this front part, which could snap. So edge of the table, tap it down. Worst case, you could file it. And that's going to be on the top, and that's going to be with 2 M3x10 flat heads on either side. These are going to be a 2mm drive. And then on the other side, 2 more M3x10 flatheads with the 2mm drive. And then now we can do the official test fire with it all the way buttoned down. Still spins, still cycles, put some darts in it. Mag goes in, mag drops out. Oop. Oh. Okay, it's probably getting snagged on its way into the cover, so we want to file that out. Kind of give it a smoother bore, because I could tell it was getting pushed, but then it was kind of getting stopped on something. It could also be the throw of the solenoid isn't quite, it's designed so that way when it hits the dart, it actually throws the dart. It doesn't actually reach the dart enough to then push it through, but actually hits the back of the dart and throws it in. So you want that cycle to be as smooth as possible so that you get the most throw. You can also push the back to see how much friction's in the flap. That could be a problem. It feels pretty good though, so I'm gonna take this off. Okay, yeah, so then here I'm gonna clean up the entryway. Sometimes it can get stuck on this bottom lip. Yeah, if you see this bottom lip isn't much of a ramp. So I'm just gonna make that more rampy. That's a technical word. Of course, you also wanna make sure that your flywheels are in the center of your barrel. If they're too high or too low, it looks like they're actually too low. That can also cause a problem with your feed. Is you want these flywheels to be such that the dart, they're in the middle. Yeah. Pusher was a hair too short, so make sure you do leave a gap when you install the pusher. If we look inside, we shouldn't see the pusher in the magwell. And that's as short as we want it. And then whatever gap is left is just extra throw. So we want that extra throw. There you go. And then the last thing is, of course, the stock and the battery cover. The stock is just 2 45 pins. Almost don't even need to add this to the guide because it's so easy. But get those in there. Gentle force persuasion. And then the battery cover, it can be tight depending on your print quality. Again, so elephant's foot on the front. I want to file the sides down or file in the grooves or the outside of the cover. It's a little tight up here on the button. So I'm gonna kind of file that down a little bit just to get rid of any of the ghosting that happened so it fits super smooth. There you go, super smooth, open and close. You can also use some lube as well if you're picky. And then the pin, if it's too tight, a 3/16 drill bit will loosen up. Don't drill too much though. You want the pin to not fall out when you don't expect it, because that's the worst. Looks like it is a tiny bit tight, so you could use a small round file as well, but I'm gonna just use a 3/16 inch drill bit and do a quick pass. There you go. That's all, kind of quick pass, loosen it up a little bit. Yeah, it could also loosen up over time. There you go, not bad. So you can still get it out with your fingers. There you go, there's the Hummingbird Gen 2, super fun.